it's no longer the cheapest car is the best-selling car. That was the case for a long time. Yeah. Maruti 800 cheapest, best-selling. Alto cheapest, best-selling.
Right.
But that's all changed right now.
Indian car buyer or Indian car buying is all about, finding rational reasons to justify emotional desires.
Styling and design has become make or break. There is absolutely no doubt about it. But honestly, it's also a bit of hit and miss.
If you ask a guy, why do you buy a Maruti? He says it's a very good quality product, doesn't break down. So yeah, it's reliable. You ask a European guy, why did he buy a Volkswagen? He says quality again, but he means because of, the feel inside the car, it's luxurious.
I think in many cases, efficiency is no longer the deal breaker.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, people, look, if they're spending so much on a car, they don't mind spending so much on fuel, though fuel has become more expensive. Hello, it's that time of the week for our weekly podcast. So welcome to Deep Drive powered by Kotak Mahindra Prime. Now, on this week's podcast, we aren't going to be talking about a particular car or a particular brand, but we are going to be talking about you, the car buyer, the customer. And that's what we're going to be doing this week, is decoding the Indian car buyer or customer. I'm Hormazd Sorabjee.
And I'm Sergius Barretto. And yes, as Hormazd said, we are going to be decoding the Indian customer. If such a thing can even be done, I guess, Hormazd, yeah, because very famously people say the Indian customer, we want it all.
Yeah, exactly. And for free.
And for free. Correct. So, but yeah, we will attempt to decode the Indian buyer, because we've had a lot of conversations with you, our viewers, with also our readers, our website users. So many people who come and interact with us talking about car buying and car buying advice, who we advise regularly.
Absolutely. And our AAA section on Autocar gives us so much insight. We love answering your queries. So please do keep sending them, because it really gives us a deep insight into what you're looking for.
Exactly. Absolutely. And speaking of that deep insight, Hormazd, we've, compiled this in terms of, this is overall, and I would say a broad generalization of the Indian car buyer. But what's seemingly emerging as the number one, let's say, trend, and this has changed historically as we realized, is desirability. I mean, I'd put that as a word, maybe. Desirability is number one. People are looking at desirability as, like, does this car really pull at my heartstrings? They want, and that comes from maybe style, brand image, and, price is not so important anymore. Not the top question asked.
I mean, not as important.
Not as important. Absolutely. The second one is, I'd categorize this as the quality of time that they spend inside. People are asking a lot about the interiors of the car, and it's obvious, I guess, with the amount of time we are spending in cars
in today. Traffic jams.
Absolutely.
And even on the highways.
On longer, better roads, you're driving longer.
Right. Exactly. People are doing longer distances now.
Absolutely. So that's the second one that we've noticed that you are looking for. The quality of time that you spend in the car. The third one is a big emerging one, has probably gone up through, the ranks, if we were to measure this over the years, is safety. A lot of customers asking about safety, both active and passive, right from ADAS to GNCAP ratings, crash safety, things like that. The fourth one, and this is kind of like a surprise, probably moved down the rank, is efficiency.
Yeah.
It's still there. Obviously, it's in the top 5. It's important.
Kitna deti is still important, but I think it's different for different brands, which we'll talk about.
Yes, right. Correct. Yeah, each of these, like I said, this is a generalization, but efficiency is still there, but fourth. So it's moved down the rank. And the last one is quality. Although I have to specify here, when in India, and I very often say this, when people say quality, they actually mean reliability.
Yeah.
You ask an Indian
well, the two are related. I mean,
related.
Quality product, it won't give you trouble.
True. But I mean, like, for example,
not about fit and finish and stuff.
Yes, exactly. Because if you ask a guy, why do you buy a Maruti? He says it's a very good quality product, doesn't break down. So yeah, it's reliable. You ask a European guy, why did he buy a Volkswagen? He says quality again, but he means because of, the feel inside the car, it's luxurious.
Panel gaps.
Panel gaps and things like that. So yeah, that's the fifth one. So that's what it is. Desirability, the quality of time you spend inside, safety, efficiency, and then reliability. And of course, then beyond that, we have many other parameters.
Yeah, but it's amazing how desirability has come on top.
Come up, right,
I think there's been a sea change, actually.
Sure, and you've seen it, I'm sure, right through, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think, initially, let's face it, the way the Indian car buyer has evolved. If you really go back from to the dark ages of Fiats, Padminis and Ambassadors, really no choice. You'd have the kind of small family going in for the Fiat the ambassador was for, let's say, people with a little bit more status at that time.
Gotcha.
Politicians, even captains of industry, they all had an ambassador. It was seen as the more bigger car,
Right.
more prestigious car in a way. And of course, it was very geographic also. Calcutta, of course, there's still ambassadors there. I went in one recently. And the north, of course, and of course, Padmini's, there in the rest of the country. And of course, to a small extent, the heralds, which came from the south. I guess it's where they were produced as well. But I think then we had Maruti, the Maruti phenomenon. I think that really
brought in efficiency and reliability. Right.
There's no one car that has just changed the demographic, the psyche, the whole concept of buying a car, just redefined customer mindset. Exactly. And I think what it established was, one thing is that a small car was expected to have a small price.
Right.
So even today, there's something which I call a price to size ratio, that you cannot charge a high price if the car is, not very, very big. And I think that's why we've seen, sedans, they command such a premium over hatchbacks did, which isn't the case in, let's say, Europe. So it's just because they're bigger. So I think this price to size ratio is a huge, huge factor, which has, in a way, been a big barrier for a lot of brands to bring in, let's say, premium hatchbacks into the country, because clearly hatchbacks means a certain price bracket or a perception of price which is not there.
No, right, Hormazd. I mean, even the luxury brands, they can't sell their smaller sedans too.
Exactly,
Right?
exactly.
I mean, BMW, Mercedes, Audi,
That's right. I mean, if the center of gravity for Mercedes clearly the E-Class.
Exactly.
Moving down, even though they are cheaper,
Right.
that price to size ratio is not matching. They might see more value in, let's say, a Superb, which unfortunately isn't there. But that's really a sweet spot from a price to size ratio point of view. So I think that is one factor that really still is very much ingrained, though, we are seeing a lot of elasticity, a lot of kind of flexibility. And I think the other thing, Sergius, which I've seen is the way prices have moved up. I think, or let's say the way people are jumping into their first car let's say, as their first car. Now, I got some data talking to Hyundai, because, today the Creta really in a way is the template for what an Indian consumer wants just by looking at its sales.
Ticks the maximum boxes.
Who would have thought that a car, 15 plus lakhs would be the best selling in certain months? It's unbelievable. But clearly it shows it ticks all the boxes and is really the template for anyone wanting to kind of appeal to a Indian customer. It's got SUV looks, it's got good design, it's got the space, it's got as you said, great
desirability ticks that.
in-car tech.
Correct.
Good interiors, all the cool seats, all that sort of stuff, all the gizmos that you want, and at a reasonable price. Plus, it's got brand. Brand is also quite important. And what's interesting is that 32% of all Creta buyers are first-time buyers. Can you imagine? So what does that tell you? That people are willing to spend. It's no longer the cheapest car is the best-selling car. That was the case for a long time. Yeah, Maruti 800 cheapest, best-selling.
True.
Alto cheapest, best-selling.
Right.
But that's all changed right now, and it just shows how the aspirations are building. And I think actually it's happened after COVID. Multiple things. I think after COVID. Before that, I think people were really looking at a lot of ride sharing, not having their own vehicles. It was a pain. They wanted the flexibility of not being tied down with EMIs and stuff like that. But I think it just all changed after COVID, because people realized that the YOLO effect, you only live once. They wanted to kind of, indulge in a car. It was their own private space. And I think also the Instagram age has made, people want to kind of feel good about their car. It's instrument of status. It's got a lot of emotional clout, cars do. And I think I would say that Indians have found, a love affair with their car has been reignited like never before after COVID.
Absolutely. So, Hormazd, let's take it through. Let's start with the first one, desirability. Like I was saying, it's a lot of what is feeding this desirability. Apparently, when we've seen this is the styling. I mean, design today is absolutely a key driver.
Before getting to design, let's talk about body style. So SUVs,
of course,
maximum desirability.
Exactly.
I mean, in pecking order, let's take body styles. You've got, I would say, the SUV.
Right.
High on desirability. That's why people are going for them. Maybe a distant second is sedans.
Right.
Still, you've got that 3-box status. Everyone likes a 3-box, especially if you're chauffeur driven. It's always, connoted a certain status in the Indian motoring psyche. So that's there. I think after that, I would say the quintessential hatchback.
Right.
And maybe then the MPV, which really appeals to someone who's, just wanting something functional, not really that aspirational as far as cars go.
Right.
Don't want to diss them for their other values. But as far as cars go, they don't think it's important enough,
Right.
and are happy with the functionality of an FB and low running costs. No wonder then, MPVs have a very high CNG kind of uptake. Because it's all about low running cost. It's all about...
At least the entry MPVs. And you also have the ultra luxury MPVs which are growing.
That's right. But that's a different category
Exactly.
altogether.
So it's a niche, and
Exactly.
I think it goes as an add-on after the...
Yeah, that's really interesting, because over there it's a bit like a been there, done that kind of thing.
Exactly.
Maybe a bit of reverse snobbery.
Exactly.
I've had my S-Class,
Yeah.
I've had
done
my...
everything. I've done
now I just want
everything.
something that's
Yeah.
functional, cool,
Through it.
got all my gizmos. It's like
Correct.
my living room, and, so they don't care what it looks like.
Exactly.
So I think maybe that's what's happening over there. But sticking with MPVs, I think also what happens with MPVs, and this is also we can talk about brand loyalty, which I think is the highest in MPVs. If you see, people are very risk averse. So that's why you've got the Innova.
Right.
It's a default purchase, as is the Ertiga.
Right.
And we found that everyone has tried to come in and, left with a bloody nose here. Whether you had the Marazzo, whether you had the Logil, whether you had the BRV, the Xylo, all this kind of thing, I think, and people have tried to put in more, spec it up more, give it more power, but customers are not interested in that. It's really the kind of
safe bets.
The safe bets which they want.
True, absolutely. So, Hormazd, then, so that's one body style, and then style. I think we've seen that emerge, and that's like number one today. People really want that car, MPV, sedan, whatever, to look good, to make them feel good about that purchase. And I think even the Indian brands, Tata Motors, we've always liked their styling.
Yeah.
Mahindra have up their this thing also very radical and things like that. I think you can see there's a lot of focus now on styling cars to sort of appeal to the buyer, to catch them there itself,
Absolutely.
to sort of...
No, styling and design has become make or break. There is absolutely no doubt about it. But honestly, it's also a bit of hit and miss.
Yes, absolutely. Because it's so subjective.
It is very subjective. And I think what I would say is that, again, moving with segments, I think EVs, radical styling works best over there. People want that wow
We've
factor.
got examples of that.
Exactly.
happening, yeah.
But again, you can't go too radical. I mean, to be honest, the B6, I thought it would sell more than the XEV9E, but it hasn't. I would imagine one of the reasons is the radical styling, which also has an impact on the functionality, the rear seat space.
Correct.
Which is just too less for a car of that price.
Entry, ingress.
Yeah, and we'll talk about the importance of rear seat space also, and interior cabin space in this.
Which we will.
But then I think as you go down, of course, SUVs, Creta, again, a classic example. People just love the design. But again, that similar design language didn't quite work for the Exter, where people want a slightly, maybe a more conservative, and something like the Punch,
Right.
is the right kind of design template for that sector.
Right.
You go further down, it gets a bit more conservative. I think vehicles like the Ignis, one of the reasons also it didn't do well by Maruti standards, too funky. Espresso, Hyundai Eon.
Right.
It was just an overstyled vehicle for that segment, and people said, hey, this is not me.
Too much going on.
Too much going on. It was
KUV.
KUV was a design disaster.
Yeah,
Absolutely, absolutely. But that really was just, a bad
Too many
design.
things, yeah.
Exactly. I mean, whatever segment that just was something which,
Whatever it was, yeah.
Exactly. So I think design again is very subjective. It's been very hit and miss. And, I think some companies which consistently get it right, I think for a lot of people is Hyundai. People have liked Hyundai styling. Though the new design language, again, can tend to be a radical, but somehow with the Indian psyche, that's worked quite well. And even Mahindra, I mean, one could say that it's not as conservative as Tata products are, but for their buyer, who wants that little bit of what I say, ding-chak, I think they kind of, the styling appeals to that. So really it's segments, it's buyers, it's demographics, so subjective. it's really a hard job for designers to really get that
To crack.
one design that satisfies everyone. And it's just not possible.
Yeah, absolutely, Hormazd. And it's not just the overall style, right, that is appealing today. Today, consumers, we've seen they're even looking at specific areas of a car, how well they are styled, right? Whether it's alloy wheels. I mean, that's
Exactly. I mean,
Yeah.
alloy wheels, let's not forget, wheels take up about 25% of the surface area of a car.
Visual area, yeah.
Visual. So, they're very, very important.
right.
And, that's a good point you brought up, Sergius, because I remember, when the Renault Duster and Nissan Terrano basically rebadged cars.
Rebadge, yeah.
How do you choose between the two? A lot of buyers were picking the Terrano over the Duster because of its better and cooler looking alloy wheels.
Okay.
And I remember at that time Sumit Sani telling me that, he was desperate to kind of get another set of alloys for the Duster. It takes time to develop.
Who was at Renault then?
Yeah, he was MD of Renault. It takes time to develop because they're large volumes. You have to tool up for it, sauce the wheels. Because he found that, people were just looking at the wheels and preferring that, the Terrano to the Duster. So even something like alloy wheels, profile of tires, which give a sportier stance, all this kind of thing, all these small details, they do make a difference.
Absolutely. And in fact, a recent example is BMW with the 5 Series. I mean, they've changed the alloy, or it's a larger alloy because it looks more proportionate.
Yeah.
So I think earlier the thought was probably this is the better tire, higher sidewall, more for comfort and things like that. But the looks are overriding, any rational.
That's right. It's a tough one. Very often, you have to balance design, looks, and functionality.
Right, absolutely. So, what was the next one is like the area that we were seeing is the quality of time inside the car. A lot of customers today are looking at that as the second most important thing when buying a car. And
Yeah.
I think that's driving the feature craze, right? I mean,
That is driving the onboard tech is really super important, and
sunroof. Yeah, feel good inside.
exactly. We
Ambient
talked about the
lighting.
sunroof in our
Right.
podcast on features.
True.
They just love the feel of it, the ambient light, especially at night with the light coming in.
Correct.
So, I can understand why people want a sunroof. So that's definitely there. I think, again, ambient
audio.
lighting,
Yeah.
branded audio, just everything that makes you feel good in the car. And I think what's happening is the features arm race is spoiling customers more and more, and they're expecting this even in lower segments.
Yeah.
So, I think now automatically when I get into any car, I kind of look for the power adjust.
Absolutely.
And if there's a manual, I say, oh my
Sure.
God, so you're not used to
Exactly.
that. So I think
No, that's a good example. In fact, I just happened to be on a shoot with Sharad, who's behind the camera there. We were opening the tailgate. I'm forgetting which car it was. We didn't have a powered one. I think it was the Clavis. So I, released the thing and we're waiting for it to go up.
I had to
And we're all waiting. And they're like, oh, yeah, wait, you got to lift it.
So I think these features are very important to Indian customers, and I think also what drives it. That a lot of them are very superficial. It's they override sometimes the engineering depth, the quality, which really is not appreciated as much because, frankly, our driving conditions in just stop-start traffic,
Right.
it's a really how do I say, a leveler, a grand leveler of everything. I mean, how much can you appreciate a good engine or a fantastic suspension?
Yeah.
Well, the suspension is important, but what I meant,
You
the
can't-
dynamics.
Yeah, you can't appreciate it. The rider handling. Like, handling
Exactly, yeah. And I think, a lot of companies, a lot of brands have built their success on let's say, the onboard tech. I think MG with the Hector did a fantastic job with that, I think with that internet inside. So I think they really kind of struck a chord over there. And when they launched, they've done very well. I think the Koreans have done a great job. Mahindra, I think they built an image around themselves as, a tech company with the amount of tech they've put into the car. Now, I think it's too much, but, who's to say, man, let's say I'm seeing a lot of XEV 90s on the road. So clearly already, they're lapping it up even at that price. So I think, that's the thing. So I think it depends on the segment. EVs, more tech.
Yeah.
Let's say MPVs, more functionality. So, it kind of is different for different segments. And different kind of buyer profiles.
True. And, Hormazd, the other thing that's emerging from all of the queries and conversations we have with customers, and also in some syndicated studies that brands have done and we've seen, is seat comfort. And I think this has a correlation, like you said, people are skipping the entry levels and going into like Cretas, first time buyers, 30+% buying Creta first time. You're at a stage in your life where your house is already very comfortable. You've got lovely sofas today, recliners, and all of that is becoming the norm in our homes today.
Correct.
Why should the seat comfort be any different in the car today?
Yeah.
And a lot of people want the seat comfort.
Absolutely.
That's so many queries are coming into us from on seat comfort.
Yeah, the demand for seat comfort is there, but that Sergius, that leads me to another very interesting issue, and that is space.
Right.
I mean,
It's around the seat.
around the
Right.
seat. I mean, I think sometimes the logic is that I think earlier there was a thought that, the most spacious car has an edge over everyone else. But I don't think you have to give the maximum amount of space, but you have to give the minimum amount of space.
You can't be at the minimum amount of space. Yeah.
Or you can't be below it.
Correct.
Needed. I think a classic example for a car that's failed because the space was much less than the base level of minimum is the A-star.
Yeah, it's your favorite example, I know.
Yeah, and you got an A-star. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it is so terribly
True.
cramped at the back. Now, people may say that, people don't really use the back
Correct.
seat. But yeah, they do. They do use it occasionally. And it's so bad that it becomes a deal breaker.
Right.
So you don't need to have the most spacious back seat, but, you need the minimum
No,
level of
absolutely. You're right. Space there, the back seat and the boot. I mean, Sam uses the car, my son, he uses the car all the time. And so when they go out with friends, he's taller than me, like 5'11". They hate going out in the A-star because they are cramped and then they can't carry anything in the boot.
Correct. And now,
either.
and you would wonder, how did Maruti make a boo-boo like that? But the fact is, that car was designed for Europe.
Yeah.
It was a European car, and clearly, we've talked about this before. What works in Europe does not work.
We had a
in
whole
India.
podcast there.
And again, talking about space, let's take the maximum amount of space. And the example I like to give is the Xylo, Mahindra Xylo. Again, not a great car in every way. That car was designed, I remember them saying, from inside out. That means they fixed the interior space first.
All the
They wanted maximum second row, fantastic third row, and then built the car around that.
right.
Now, that compromised a lot of things,
Absolutely.
dynamics, weight. To make a car that big, it was on a ladder frame, it was that high.
Too high.
So it was just a disaster in every other way from a dynamic point of view. And, then you again look at a car like an Innova, which didn't have as good a third row, the Innova back then, but it just worked so well overall as a package. So again, on space, I think there's a balance over there. You have to give the minimum amount, but you don't necessarily have to give the maximum amount.
Absolutely.
And again, coming to the third row, it's always a thing. Should the third row seat be best in class? I think it's a seat that's used occasionally. It's good to have.
Like a +2. So it's a 5+2, not a 7.
Again, don't have to be the maximum. But again, if you're buying a 7-seater, it shouldn't be like, only for
You're sitting on
infants or something or sitting on the floor. So I think that's the balance I think consumers appreciate.
Right.
And again, you take something like the Alcazar, it's not a 7-seater, which really is seen as a Creta Plus.
Right.
Not as a wide-bodied XUV 700 with a proper row. So I think these are the kind of perceptions which customers look at when they decide.
Absolutely. Yeah, and what was something surprising, which, people very often when we review a car, everyone asks us, how was the car to drive? Yeah, fair enough. But when buying a car, ride comfort doesn't actually factor very high. People aren't really looking at it as they are in terms of seat comfort and things like that, which is odd, right? I mean,
yeah, I guess so. I mean, look, ride comfort is important. We talk about it, especially in the luxury car. They like the ride. But I think when, the people blame the road more than the car,
if the ride is
be
bad.
bumpy. Yeah, exactly. And today I'll be honest, on Mumbai streets, you take any car, it'll feel terrible.
Fair enough.
So,
Fair enough.
Because there's no suspension that can cope with what Mumbai roads throws up at you.
Correct.
So I think they kind of are resigned to the fact that, if it's a bumpy ride, the road is bumpy. So it's not so critical on the...
Not the deal maker.
Yeah, exactly. And I think another thing is NVH.
Right.
It is important, but to have good NVH, I think If you have too much of it, it can be an issue. I think Honda Elevate is one car which, really is on the high side,
Right.
and people have noticed it.
Right.
But, within a band, if you're at the higher end, people really won't care again because everyone's honking.
Yeah.
You got your music on in the car.
Correct.
And it really doesn't
Again,
make
not
an issue.
bigger.
And in EVs, it's not a problem at all.
Right.
So there's assumed to be quiet, whatever you say.
Correct.
So I think these are the smaller kind of nuances which might be important in other markets.
Right.
The more discerning buyers, especially in Europe.
Right.
I think very, very kind of fastidious buyers over there. But in India, I think ride comfort and NVH or noise
Right.
is really not as much.
Not a critical factor. Yeah.
Exactly.
Absolutely. So moving to the next area, which you said the third area emerging is safety. And
Yeah.
this, I think if we had tracked this over the years, you don't need to know that it's just rocketed up the charts.
Absolutely.
Right.
And I think clearly it's a function of a lot of things. I think firstly, the cars are getting faster, the roads are getting better, the accidents are getting more severe. So people do realize that. And of course, now there is some reference points of safety. We've discussed it, may not agree with it completely, but you've got a star rating, which you have.
Yeah.
Plus, there are a lot of active safety features which come in, which kind of give people a little bit more security. So, and it's really good. I'm glad that people are looking and considering safety because, it's something we as a nation, as a culture, we don't really attribute too much to. But, you still might want a very safe car, but whether you wear your seatbelt at the back or whatever, or the way you drive, that's a different story altogether.
Which we also discussed in the safety podcast.
Exactly. So people want a car with good safety, or what is their perception of safety.
Right.
And I will say perception because, as I've said, stars are not gospel. The NCAP ratings are not gospel. There's so much other to safety. And, take for example, again, one of my favorite cars, the Hyundai Creta, might have 3-star crash rating. Everyone say, oh, it's, dangerous and all. But a
But it's
3-star crash,
0, 1 or 2.
and maybe against a lesser car, a subcompact SUV,
Right.
which is
4-star.
4-star.
Right.
In a crash of the two, the heavier car might be better off.
Better off, yeah.
So a 3-star heavier car maybe is, one can say, or let's say maybe safer than a 4-star lighter car.
Correct.
Or a 5-star lighter car.
Right.
So, I think all these things are, but the point is, as you said, safety has become such a burning topic.
Right.
And I think what's driven that a lot is social media. You've got the moral grandstanders, everyone who feels good about talking about safety because, you know how it is. It's all what I call moral grandstanding,
Right.
which people love to do. And that's also driven the safety narrative, to a great extent. So I think that's good. It's forced manufacturers to make their cars safer. It's forced manufacturers to kind of put airbags, force the government to put airbags. So I think, cars have become a lot safer, and that's largely driven by the consumer and the voice of the consumer in this case. So really, I think, from the Indian consumer point of view, this is one point where I think it's really the consumer that has driven cars to become safer.
Absolutely, Hormazd. And I remember when I bought cars, like I started my car buying journey really early. So I like we discussed in the previous podcast, when I bought the 800, cheapest car I could afford when I was, I think, 24 or 25 years old. I then moved up very quickly into an Alto. I wanted something safer. Again, safety being relative. I bought an Alto VXI, and I remember, I had an offer from the dealer of speccing a car with some free features, not features, I would say free accessories. And I asked for rear seat belts because they didn't have at that time. It wasn't mandatory.
Yeah.
And I think the outside rear view mirror or something safety related, I can't remember. And they were quite surprised. They're like, no, but take a stereo or take a foot mats. And
Yeah.
I think, no, I'll buy that later, but I want this. And they're like, oh, but we don't even have that in the showroom now to fit onto the car.
Yeah.
So I had to go back 2 weeks later when the rear seat belts came in, the whole kit. Because the export model had the rear seat belts.
That's right.
The domestic model didn't.
Yeah.
I think it has now moved up tremendously because people back then didn't care about seatbelts. But I think I like what you said, Hormazd, that people are asking for safety with a false impression that, okay, I have these features, therefore I'm safe. No, you've got to use them, right? And I think public service announcement, please wear your seatbelts in the front and the rear all the time, right?
That's right.
Going to buy bread, you're going on a highway in city all the time.
Right. So, and again, I think, one massive change that's happened is that people are now driving longer distances, and I think, let's say, years ago, Delhi, Jaipur, people would take a flight.
Right.
Because the flights were cheap at that time and the roads were bad.
Right.
Right now, flights are expensive and the roads are much better, so people are driving. Same thing like Delhi, Chandigarh.
Right.
I think again, it's you would drive
True.
typically. Again,
Even
flights were
Bombay,
cheaper.
Pune had a flight, if I'm not mistaken, years ago.
It did have a flight years ago.
Right.
People would take the train.
And the train, we had the
Because
still have the Deccan Queen.
exactly,
Actually, yeah.
Deccan Queen.
True.
People are still taking the train now because the expressways sometimes get clogged. But that time, there were horror stories of spending 20 hours on the highway because, there was no expressway at that time. So people would kind of think twice even about doing Mumbai, Pune by car. Now that you don't even think twice of. I mean, from here,
We
Atal
drive up
say
to Pune.
we go there, Pune, do a meeting and come back to office.
Exactly.
Who would have thought we could do that years back? So I think people are definitely driving longer distances. They're going more on holidays. I think driving holidays has become a big thing. People want to go out and hit the road. And that has made consumers think differently about their cars in terms of safety, in terms of space. And again, as I was saying, the kind of, let's say, whole SUV appeal is just driven further by this new kind of want to be on the road and drive long distances.
Absolutely. So, Hormazd, that's the third one. Let's move on to the fourth area, which actually, unlike safety, which has climbed up the charts, this one I'm sure has dropped down the charts. The fourth one actually is efficiency.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, it's still important. Yes. In fact, very interesting in the last podcast that we did, CNG, electric and diesel, despite all the anti-sentiment, diesel sales also grew. The only fuel choice sale that dropped was petrol.
Yeah.
So clearly efficiency is important, but it's not the most important. It's like the fourth right now in our ranking.
Correct. I think in many cases, efficiency is no longer the deal breaker.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, people, look, if they're spending so much on a car, they don't mind spending so much on fuel, though fuel has become more expensive. There's been a complete shift of mindset. People are not so kind of, let's say, so conscious or penny conscious on their fuel costs. Yeah. But again, I think it depends on brand and it depends on segment. So
yes, expectations from a brand.
Expectations from a brand. I mean, and I think Maruti has got the highest expectations.
Right.
Everyone expects a Maruti to be fuel efficient.
Right.
And even if it's not, it's even half a kpl or 1 kpl, people will, kind of complain. And unfortunately, that's actually backfired on Maruti.
Yes.
In fact, today also, they don't talk about their fuel efficiency anymore. Because, when you have a pressure to be fuel efficient, you make compromise in other areas. You can't have the most powerful engines or the fun-to-drive engines. Your cars can't be heavy. As a result, that could impact safety. Right. The cars have to be light. So there are so many things you have to do to meet that kind of, let's say, expectation of the best-in-class fuel efficiency. Right. Even engine calibration. If you see Marutis, they have this very aggressive, what I call tip in, tip out. So it's a little jerky at low speeds because the minute you lift off your foot, the fuel is cut off instantly. So there's a little bit of a lurch.
Yeah, not like
it's
Mahindra
not
there.
tapered off.
Yes,
The tip out, what you call is, when you kind of, cut the fuel, it has to be little tapered. If it's completely, you'll feel that bit of
a long tail. Basically.
Yeah, exactly. Mahindra, just the opposite. I mean, I remember a Bosch engineer who I bumped into was talking about a calibration guy. He says for Mahindra, their guys want more power. It was a great situation to be in. So strong is a brand on, power and torque and that sort of thing. So that's what they want. But again, Mahindra gets away with it because it's 84% diesel. So the hit on, your pocket isn't as much. Right. But again, in everything, you need a minimum level of fuel efficiency as well. Classic cases, if you fall below that, people will start complaining. For me, the MG Hector is a classic example. It's known for very poor fuel efficiency, and that has now impacted its sales. But, if you're 13 or 14 or 15, people won't mind. KPL.
Right.
So it's that sort of thing is, you don't have to have, you won't, let's say, buy one car over the other if one is giving 15 and the other is giving 13. So I think it's again, I think it is important, but not the most important factor.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, and Hormazd, just to go back to Maruti, something that you said, I just wish though that they'd applied it differently to different models, because I mean, like a Baleno, it's your family, hatch, spacious, a good ride and things like that, should be efficient. The Swift could have been a little more fun, peppier car,
It could have, but the pressure on efficiency, Sergius, you and I like that. But
Right.
you have to think that, look at the number.
The number game.
The number game. Maruti sells in tier 1, tier 2
Right.
cities. I mean, honestly, I don't know how many of them read Autocar also. So, but the fact is that,
They look at that number.
they just want that number. They go with that. That's what they want.
On Maruti.
And one very telling, let's say, point is that you take something like the Francs. About, I would say, 80-85%, maybe even more now, is a 1.2 naturally aspirated engine, not the 1-liter turbo.
Right.
Whereas with the Taser, they're only selling the turbo engine. Of course, much smaller volumes.
Right.
But again, that's what the brand expectation is. So, I think for Maruti, people might, diss the 1.5 naturally aspirated engine in the Brezza, which doesn't even meet the sub
Small
4-meter
car.
rule.
Yeah.
But it's a sweet spot for Maruti.
Right.
It's giving you sufficient power and torque, which a 1.2 naturally aspirated wouldn't do, with a decent level of fuel efficiency. And it's at a low cost. So, I want to, again, talk maybe on the engine mix because of this. So, I think a naturally aspirated engine is actually the backbone powertrain for petrols.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I mean, if you think of it, if any brand is offering an NA version,
Right.
that will be the best selling.
Creta, Hormazd is the perfect example. You've got NA, you've got turbocharged in petrol, you've got electric, you've got diesel. But yeah, I would absolutely back what you're saying. You pick, for me, is the naturally aspirated petrol.
Exactly. And that
that's the
1.5 CVT really
with the seat,
is,
yes.
it does everything you want it. I mean, what a normal person would want it. So I think, again, adequate power. That CVT is one of the best CVTs, much better than the Honda, belt-driven one. There's a chain-driven one. So it really got that going well. And so I think, I think you cannot not have an NA engine. I mean, I'm just thinking if, let's say, Volkswagen Group had a 1.5 NA,
Yes.
normal good old MPI 1.5, I think they could have got more sales, because this is an expensive engine. It's imported. TSI technology is expensive. It's great to have.
It's also very sensitive to your driving style. Your
You're right.
efficiency drops.
Absolutely right. I think, turbocharged engines are, on the drive cycle, they may be super efficient because you're driving it in a very optimal way. But the minute you floor it, the fuel efficiency just plummets.
Right.
Whereas in a naturally aspirated, that kind of, let's say,
Not as
variation
bad, yeah.
is not as bad. So I think that's there. I think diesels, again, work a lot. Again, Creta is, some like Mahindra's we are saying, is about 84% diesel in the bigger SUVs. As you come down, obviously the diesel appeal goes down naturally. But even in a mid-size segment, something like a Creta, why it's doing well is about over 40% are diesel.
Right.
And who else is offering that?
Correct.
No one except Kia. So
Which is, technically the same in terms of the technology.
yeah, correct. And the other diesel players, which are Mahindra and Tata, don't have a Creta rival. So, I think it's, again, I think to me, there's that Creta should be there on every OEM's, let's say whiteboard with a crosshair on it, and, to go for that.
Correct.
So, because I think it really sums up what the Indian customer really wants.
So they have decoded the Indian car buyer.
I think the Creta is one
Right.
model that has really kind of decoded what the Indian car buyer wants. I mean,
Absolutely.
it would be segment-wise. Obviously, the compact SUV segment is much bigger, much bigger. So technically, that would be the kind of center of gravity.
Right.
But there's no one model that stands out over the others as much. Punch does to a lot of extent. And again, a classic example of just appealing to what the Indian customer wants. Design was fantastic.
Right.
It had a base 1.2 engine, which, I mean, honestly, we've criticized, but,
Sufficient.
customers think otherwise, and they've got it.
Yeah.
They've got an EV version as well.
And the space, I mean, the packaging just sufficient.
Packaging is right, not best in class rear seat,
right.
but just right.
Just right.
And so really, again, they've decoded it for that segment pretty well. XUV 3XO also now fighting back with a lot more features. So, I think people have understood even in that segment, you need to have the SUV look, you need to have a certain amount of in-cabin appeal, and I think that's, working over there.
Right.
So, that really is the segment which is the heart of the market, the compact SUV segment.
True. And, so almost everyone on efficiency, and I think brings me to the last one, which was quality. But as we said, right, if you really drill down, it's reliability that the Indian car buyer really is looking for. Right. We've seen this. I think this is, something that where brands have built themselves on this. I mean, Toyota is a prime example, right? I mean,
it is, but the fact that it's not right on top.
Yes, it's number 5. Yeah,
is very telling.
Right.
It has given, I mean, to be honest, Indian OEMs which really don't have that finesse.
Yes,
or that depth of engineering, a chance to really kind of appeal by bombarding them with phenomenal features.
Both are Indian brands.
Exactly. So they have decoded the Indian customer, being Indians, that, okay, whereas I think everyone else is scratching their head, but my TSI engine is so fantastic. Right. My suspension is brilliant. Right. The ride and handling is top class. So you had people appreciating it.
Exactly.
And this is global people wondering, and I think they're scratching their heads and looking at these cars, which, wouldn't stand a chance in Europe because they don't match.
Hormazd, there's a
but they've just grabbed the hearts of Indian car buyers.
Right.
So I think Indian OEMs know what Indians want. They are kind of conceived by Indians, made by Indians, led by Indians, and I think that's really that is what the bottom line is.
Absolutely. Hormazd, I mean, I remember there's a wiper blade example which Volkswagen years ago we were talking to them, and they're like, look, our cars are so high quality and reliable. Both, the spring loaded buttons, we calibrate the effort required. You look at Indian brands, whether it were Tata, Mahindra, and even Maruti, they were lumped into that. And wiper blades, I remember this guy telling me, he said, look at our wiper blades, they will last for 5 monsoons, whereas a Tata or a Maruti, you'll change every monsoon and things like that. But people didn't care about it,
But, there's a fundamental difference with the Europeans between durability and reliability.
Right.
The German brands still give trouble.
Yes. Yeah.
The AC will pack up.
Right.
Something will go. That's where Toyota really stands out. And I think it's only Toyota because their reliability is so good that it's the only brand where that one factor overrides everything else.
Right.
So they get away with giving you really rubbish interiors. NVH is bad.
Right.
Desirability is still good with cars like the Fortuner, but Innova, where's the desirability? Not much. But it's just that bulletproof reliability, which goes to show sometimes there's no price you can put on reliability. It's just something which, is, and Toyota has really kind of captured that market where people just want something that's safe and reliable. And there are a lot of people out there. So, obviously, Toyota doesn't sell as much as other brands, but really, their secret is on this one factor where they are so way ahead of everything else that though reliability may not be the most important thing, but, it is, in Toyota's case, it is everything. And that's why people are going for it.
Yeah, they've chosen this as their pillar. You could think of it like of these top 5, they've taken this one, and perhaps desirability, like you said, the Fortuner.
Exactly.
They've got those two. Quality of interiors, they really don't care about much.
Exactly.
I mean, both of us aren't fans of it, but
yeah, that's right. And that's even with the luxury car brands. I mean, Mercedes, BMWs, Audis, Jaguars, they are so desirable. They just, kind of come on top of everything. But in terms of reliability, they won't touch a Lexus.
Yes.
But they still sell more than a Lexus because, again, to your point,
right.
Even with them, people, sometimes I think we are willing to accept,
yes.
Something will go wrong, we'll complain about it. But it's just kind of, sometimes I think it's just par for the course.
Right.
We've seen so many complaints that come in, so many complaints of Tata Motors which have come in, but people are still buying the cars, because the other factors are overriding this. So really, it's a balance of so many points, and I think that's really the beauty of That's what makes this whole thing so fascinating.
The Indian car buyer.
The Indian car buyer, absolutely.
No, absolutely. And desirability, coming back just to sort of end, why desirability ranks number one probably. I mean, it goes back to something my ex-boss used to say, Matthew. He would always say, Indian car buyer or Indian car buying is all about, finding rational reasons to justify emotional desires.
Yeah.
That's it. It's just an emotional desire that's driven you.
And let's not forget, to end this podcast, is our rate of motorization is still very low. 30 per thousand, which means that there are so many people aspiring to buy a car, and now they're even jumping into higher segments. I mean, the used car market is really kind of booming on the fact that people no longer want a base looking budget car. I mean, the Altos have become too expensive. That's why the Alto is going down, because at the price they are now, they become so expensive, 4-5 lakhs. You can get a more desirable pre-owned cars.
Exactly.
So I think that's really what is driving that sector a lot. So desirability, very, very important. And may that stay that way, because cars are to be loved like all of us do. And I think we'll end our podcast on that. Do let us know, what factors you think are important when you buy a car. We really love to hear from you. We keep hearing from you on our website. But after this podcast, do drop the comments. What are, let's say, your top 5 considerations when buying a car? Anyway, thanks for watching, and see you again same time next week, Saturday, 11 a.m. on YouTube as always, but you can even catch us on Apple Podcast and Spotify.